What separates a lie from a legend? A lie dies when the liar is gone. A legend survives centuries, crossing oceans, passed from parent to child like a warning that refuses to fade. These aren't bedtime stories. They're testimonies, fractured memories of something people saw or thought they saw and couldn't explain with the words they had. When ancient sailors spoke of whirlpools that swallowed ships whole, were they lying? When villagers in the Congo described a horned beast that killed elephants, were they delusional? When cultures separated by thousands of miles all drew the same winged serpent, was that coincidence? Maybe not, because sometimes the line between myth and memory is thinner than we want to admit. And the creatures we dismissed as fantasy? Some of them left evidence. Not the kind you expect, but evidence nonetheless. These are 7 legendary creatures that may have been more than myths. Not because monsters were real, but because something was. Cerberus. Every civilization has placed a guardian at death's door. Something that watches, something that judges, something that won't let you pass. The Greeks called theirs Cerberus, a 3-headed hound chained to the underworld's gate. Each head watched a different direction. Some said past, present, and future. Others said birth, youth, and death. Either way, the message was clear. This boundary is not unguarded. But here's what's strange. We've found animals with multiple heads. Polycephaly, it's rare, but documented. 2-headed snakes, 2-headed turtles, even 2-headed dogs. They don't usually survive long, but when they do, people stare. They remember. Now imagine you're in ancient Greece. No biology, no genetics. You see a 2-headed dog guarding a temple. The story spreads, the heads multiply, the creature grows, the myth solidifies. But maybe Cerberus wasn't just about what people saw. Maybe it was about what they needed to believe, that death had rules, that someone was watching. So what happens when we stop believing someone stands at that gate? If we guard the gates of death, what guards the paths of the living? Ancient sailors knew, sometimes the most terrifying boundaries aren't between worlds, but within our own. Charybdis. Sailors don't tell stories about calm seas. They remember the moments when the water turned against them. Charybdis wasn't a creature you could fight. She had no teeth, no claws, just hunger, an endless, swirling mouth that appeared without warning and dragged ships down. The Greeks placed her in the Strait of Messina, opposite another monster named Scylla. Sailors had to choose. Risk the jaws or risk the whirlpool. Most chose neither and died trying to thread the gap. Modern science says the strait's whirlpools aren't dangerous, but ancient ships weren't modern ships. A wooden vessel caught between colliding currents, spinning in water it couldn't escape. What would you call that experience if you survived? Charybdis represents something we still haven't conquered, the ocean's indifference. She wasn't evil. She didn't hunt. She simply existed. So maybe the question isn't whether Charybdis was real. Maybe it's whether the ocean still has mouths we haven't found yet. The sea hides its secrets in depths we can't reach. But some creatures hide in places we simply refuse to look. Places where the maps still say unexplored. Imelantuka. The Congo Basin is one of the last unmapped places on Earth. Roads disappear. Light barely reaches the forest floor. And people who've lived there for generations describe something science says shouldn't exist. They call it Imelantuka, the elephant killer. Reddish-brown, massive legs, a long tail dragging behind, and a single horn, sharp enough to gore. It sounds like a ceratopsian, a horned dinosaur that went extinct 66 million years ago. But the descriptions are too consistent, too detailed, and the Congo regularly reveals species we didn't know existed. Some say it's a misidentified rhino. But African rhinos have two horns, not one. Others think it might be a surviving relative of ancient megafauna. Creatures like Arsinoitherium, prehistoric giants that vanished from the fossil record but maybe found refuge in the swamps. The uncomfortable question: what if extinction isn't absolute? What if some creatures didn't die out, they just learned to hide? And if the past survived in the Congo's depths, what else might be waiting in places we've convinced ourselves are empty? Perhaps extinction isn't the end we thought it was. But there's another possibility, one even stranger. What if we're the ones bringing extinct creatures back, piece by piece? Chimera. The Greeks described an impossible creature: lion's head, goat's body, serpent's tail. 3 species fused into one nightmare. But today, we don't just imagine chimeras, we create them. In 1984, scientists merged a goat embryo with a sheep embryo. The result wasn't a hybrid, it was a true chimera. 2 genetic identities in one living creature. We've grown human brain cells inside mice. We've patented pig organs modified with human DNA. In 1998, scientists even tried to patent a human-animal chimera. The government stopped them, calling it monstrous. Mount Chimera in Turkey still burns today, natural gas escaping from underground. To the Greeks, those eternal flames were proof the monster had lived there. But maybe the myth wasn't about something they saw. Maybe it was a warning about something we'd eventually do. Because the chimera didn't stay in mythology. It followed us into labs, into ethics debates, into the future we're building. The Greeks feared a monster made of 3 animals. What will our descendants fear when they look at what we've made of ourselves? We're creating creatures that shouldn't exist. But some legends describe creatures that existed everywhere at once, as if the whole world remembered the same thing: dragons. Here's what makes dragons different from every other myth. Every culture believed in them. Europe drew them breathing fire. China made them symbols of imperial power. Norse mythology had them gnawing at the world tree's roots. The Bible called the devil a dragon. Whales put one on their flag. Why? Why this one creature across continents that never communicated, described almost identically? Some say it started with fossils. Ancient people digging and finding massive skulls with dagger-like teeth. In Sichuan, China, scholars wrote about dragon bones over 1,600 years ago, long before anyone understood what dinosaurs were. Others think dragons were inspired by living animals: crocodiles, Komodo dragons, whales decomposing into unrecognizable shapes. But there's a darker theory: collective memory. What if humans carry some genetic echo of a time when massive reptiles ruled? What if dragons aren't inventions but rememberings? Or maybe we needed something bigger than us to fight, something that explained fire and destruction and power all at once. Either way, one question remains. If dragons were just stories, why can't we stop telling them? Dragons live in every culture's memory. But some creatures live in a stranger place, the uncanny space where human meets something else. Ningen. In 2007, Japanese fishermen reported something that violated every rule. A humanoid figure in the water, 60 to 90 feet long, pale white skin, arms with webbed fingers, a face almost human, but not quite. They called it ningen. In Japanese, that means human, not monster, not creature, human. In 2010, footage surfaced of something lying on the ocean floor. Massive body, tiny eyes, a wide smile frozen on its face. It didn't move, it just watched. Parts of that footage were never released. Some say the government intervened. Reports continued to surface. Fishing crews describing something smooth and pale rising near their vessels before vanishing into the depths. Here's what makes ningen different. It's uncanny. Sea monsters are terrifying but animalistic. Ningen looks like us, but wrong. If something in the ocean has our shape, what does that mean? Did it evolve alongside us? Is it something we left behind? The ocean is 80% unexplored, and in that darkness, what if something that looks like us is staring back, wondering the same thing? Some legends come from the depths we haven't explored. Others come from the bones we've already found, but couldn't understand. Griffin. The griffin ruled earth and sky. Body of a lion, head of an eagle, wings sharp as blades. It guarded treasure, protected tombs. Some legends said its feathers could cure blindness. But the griffin might not be mythology. It might be paleontology. Ancient people in Central Asia constantly found strange fossils. Beaked skulls, powerful bodies, proportions that made no sense. They didn't have the word dinosaur, so they built a story. Historian Adrian Mayer argues griffins came from Protoceratops fossils, real dinosaurs whose skeletons littered the Gobi Desert where ancient gold miners worked. That beak? They thought eagle. That body? They thought lion. But Dr. Mark Whitten disagrees. He believes griffins were pure imagination, combining the two most powerful animals people knew. Maybe both are right. Maybe griffins started as explanations for bones, then evolved into symbols of power. But here's what we should ask. When we find something we can't explain, do we ever really understand it? Or do we just tell ourselves a story until the story becomes the truth? The creatures in this video weren't just campfire entertainment. They were attempts to explain the unexplainable, to survive what terrified us, to make sense of a world that didn't come with instructions. Some were fossils misunderstood. Some were natural phenomena given faces. Some might still be hiding in places we haven't looked. But here's the truth. It doesn't matter if they were real in the way we define it now. They were real to the people who saw them. Real enough to warn their children. Real enough to carve into stone. Real enough to survive thousands of years. Legends don't last because they're true. They last because they mean something. So the next time you hear a myth, don't ask if it happened. Ask why people needed to believe it did. Because buried in every legend is a truth we're still trying to understand.